All right, this lesson is on solving multiplication equations. By now you're starting to get the hang of solving equations. You can probably already predict how we're going to solve a multiplication equation. But before we get started, you can go ahead and get your notes page set up. Get your title up at the top, then your learning target, and our I can statement, our goal by the end of the video. Then when you're ready, we'll go on to the first problem. All right, so we're going to start with a multiplication story problem. See if that can kind of ease us into this first problem. It says Kiko saves an equal amount each week for 4 weeks to buy a $60 video game. So we want to write our equation and a bar diagram to help us find out how much he's saving each week. The first thing we need to figure out is, what don't we know? Well, we don't know how much he saved each week. So let's call that S. That's his savings each week. Well, we know that total he ends up saving $60. He saves it over 4 weeks, saving S dollars each week. Well, if it's 4 weeks and S dollars each week, total it's 4 times S to find his total. 4 times the amount each week gives us the total overall. So now we need to solve this one. We want to know what is S. We don't want to know how much it is for 4 weeks. We want to know how much it is for just 1 week. So think about how we solved our adding and subtracting problems. For an addition equation, we use subtraction to solve it. For our subtracting equations, we used addition to solve it. We always use the opposite. So what do you think we're going to use for this one? To get rid of our multiplication, we're going to use division. Instead of 4 S's, I want to divide by 4. And again, I always do it on both sides because I want to know what it is for just 1 S, 1 week of savings. So I had 4. I divided it by 4. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. 1S. 60 divided by 4 gives me 15. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my large amount and I'm dividing it down until I find out how much it is for just 1. Let's check our solution. 4 times 15. Well, 4 times 15 is 60. That's what we want for our solution. So we know it worked. Always check that solution. Now, let's do our bar diagram. So we started with 4S. That means 4 groups that each represent 1 week of savings. 1S. 4 groups of S. And we know those 4 groups are equal to 60 in total. So this is how we show it using our bar diagram. Now think about how we would want to solve this. We just want to know how much it is for 1 week. We don't want the whole thing. We just want to know 1 week here. So what we really want is we just want 1 piece of this 60 down here. Well, that means we would have to break the 60 up. We would have to divide it up into pieces in order to find the number that we need. So it makes sense that we would use division to solve our problem. So let's try a couple more. 2x is equal to 34. So we draw a line down through the middle. Sorry, that was a little crooked. And we look at our x. What did they do to x? Well, they multiplied it times 2. So I want to undo that step. I want to get rid of that 2. So I'm going to divide by 2. Your fraction bar is another way of writing division. 2 divided by 2 turns to 1. So I'm just left with x. 34 divided by 2 gives me 17. So 2 groups of x is 34. So 1x is equal to 17. Let's check our solution. 2 times x, 2 times 17. Well, that's 34. That's what I wanted for my answer. So I know I did it correctly. Let's try our bar diagram. So start with 2x. So that means 2 groups that are each x in size. And we know together they're equal to a total of 34. So again, if we were to look at our bar diagram, how would we find x? Well, x is just part of this larger number, so we would want just part of it. We would want to divide it, in this case, in half, divided by 2. Let's take a look at the next one. 4.5 equals 5x. So we draw a line down through the middle, and remember to always start with the x. That's going to decide what you do in the problem. 5x means 5 times x. Well, I just want to know what plain old x is, just 1x. So I'm going to divide by 5. But like any other problem, I have to treat both sides of my equation equally. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1, so just 1x. 4.5 divided by 5, well, I got to do a little bit of work to get there. So we do a quick little division problem. I'm going to slide your decimal right up into your answer. 5 goes into 4 0 times, so we look at the 45 instead. 5 goes into 45 9 times. Subtract, we get 0. So our answer is 0.9 or 9/10. Okay, so let's check our answer. 5 times 0.9. Let's multiply it out. Oh. Give myself a little bit of space down here. 5 times 9 is 45. 5 times 0 is 0 plus 4. We had 1 decimal place in the problem, so we put 1 decimal place in our answer. Yep, our answers work. Okay, now our bar diagram. 5 x's. So I need a bar that's broken up into 5 equal parts. Each one representing one of my x's. 5 x's, 5 groups of x. And it's going to be equal to our total of 4.5. Again, if we want to find just one piece of this, we just want one small piece of 4.5. We want to divide it into 5 pieces in order to find our answer. So that bar diagram helps you see what it is you need to do in order to solve your equation. So let's wrap it up with just a couple more. Okay? You're probably looking at these problems going, oh my God, I see fractions. There's no way I can solve these. Don't worry about it. We can tackle them. You just got to take your time and work through the problem. 3/4 W means 3/4 times W is equal to 9. So go ahead and draw my line down through the middle. So I want to figure out what W is. So I need to get rid of that 3/4. Normally, they're multiplying, so our solution was we want to divide. Well, that means I want to divide by 3/4. But if you remember back to our fraction unit, remember we can't divide by a fraction. Can you remember what we do instead? Instead of dividing by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. We multiply by the flipped over version, the upside down version of our fraction. So we were multiplying by 3/4, so we now multiply by its reciprocal, 4/3. And we do the same thing over here. Here's the nice part. My 4's cancel with each other, my 3's cancel out. So just like in the other problems, it turns into a 1. So I'm just left with 1W. Over here, 9 is really 9 over 1. 9 times 4 is 36. 1 times 3 is 3. Then we have to simplify. 36 divided by 3 gives me 12. So W is equal to 12. Let's check our answer. 3/4 times 12. Well, that's really 12 over 1. You can do your little bit of cross canceling. These can both be divided by 4. If you didn't realize you could cross cancel, you can just go ahead and multiply and simplify when you're done. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times 1 is 1. 9 over 1 is really just 9. That's what we wanted for our answer. So when you're dealing with a fraction, since we can't divide by a fraction, instead multiply by the reciprocal. Just flip the fraction upside down. So let's take a look at the next one. 2/3 x is equal to 4/9. So in this case, we have two fractions in here. But the one we want to look at is the one that's being multiplied times x. Our goal is to get x all by itself. We want to get rid of that 2/3. So our first instinct is to divide by 2/3. But if you remember, we don't divide by fractions. Instead, we multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. So we multiply both sides by 3/2, multiply by the reciprocal. Our 3's cancel out and become 1's. Our 2's cancel out and become 1's. So we're just left with 1x or x. Over here, I can do a little bit of cross simplifying, or I can just go ahead and multiply and simplify when I'm done. 4 times 3 is 12. 9 times 2 is 18. 12/18 simplifies to be 2/3. So let's check our answer. 2/3 times x, which we said is 2/3. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. I get the 4/9 that I'm looking for. So the one trick to remember is when you're multiplying by a fraction to solve the equation, instead of dividing by your fraction, you're simply going to multiply by your reciprocal. Last one. Let's see how we can do. No fractions, I promise, on this one. It said Vinny and some friends shared the cost of a new video game. The game cost $60 and each person contributed $5. How many friends chipped in for the game? So first question is, what don't we know? Well, we don't know how many friends. So we'll call that F. Well, we know each friend paid $5. So the number of friends times $5 gives me my total, which they tell me is $60 total. So our equation is really 5f equals 60. So before we solve it, let's draw our bar diagram. 5f means 5 groups of f. So I split the bar up into 5 equal parts. Each one represents one f, one friend. And we know it's going to be equal to the same size as 60. Well, think about it. We want to know how much just one, or how many friends we had here. Okay, we knew there was 5 friends. We want to know this one friend, how much of the total did they pay? Well, it looks like I need to divide that total up into pieces to find that out. So let's solve our equation. 5f means 5 times f. To solve it, we want to do the opposite. We want to divide by 5. But like all of our equations, you have to treat both sides of the equation equally. 5f divided by 5, 5 divided by 5 gives me 1, so it just turns to f. 60 divided by 5 gives me 12. Means each friend contributed $12 towards the video game. Let's check our answer. 5 times f, well, we said f is equal to 12. 5 times 12 is 60. That matches the answer I want, so I know my answer is correct, and I'm good to go. So that's how we solve our multiplication equations. We use division to solve our multiplication problems. We use it to undo the multiplication